Hey folks, messing around with Stella by Starlight, and trying to do some enclosures. And my teacher, Ted Howe, used to call them delayed resolutions, but I like the term enclosures because that really describes it. And that's what this video is going to be about. But before I get too deeply into it, I want to thank my new Patreon subscribers. I've got 2 or 3 this month, and I really appreciate that. And I would encourage anyone who would want to support this channel with a few dollars every month to hit the Patreon link down there and sign up. And it's easy to sign on, and it's easy to change your mind and sign off if you like. Also, just hitting the like button and the subscribe button also helps me a great deal, so please do that if this video is going to help you out. All right, so let's get into these delayed resolutions. Now, I'm not going to get into all the permutations of this, but basically what it is say you're in the key of C, you've got a C chord here, and you're going to aim for these notes by kind of going around them first. And you can do that with a couple of notes. You can add. You can make them more complicated. There's some classical terms for this. Sometimes they call it a cambiata. It's kind of a similar thing, or an escape tone, I think, is a way you can think of it too. That riff I was doing the other day, where it goes. That really seems like an escape tone. But, I'm not a classical theory expert, so I'll leave that to somebody else, and I apologize if I use those terms incorrectly. But what I'm going to show you is some kind of cool riffs that you can use in certain keys that will help get your fingers used to doing these enclosures so that you don't have to think about them too much and they'll just kind of come naturally. After all, that's what we want to do when we're improvising. We don't want to not be thinking, but we don't want to be overthinking either. We want to just, be able to think comfortably and play comfortably. So I'll go over some of the real typical ones, and I think you'll hear people do this one all the time. We'll do it in C. And you see how I'm aiming for each note. In fact, I'm even starting on the note and then going away and coming back to it. So that's a typical enclosure kind of line. And I'm going to show you a couple lines by one of the greatest jazz pianists of all times, and this was handed down to me by the master himself, Frederick Chopin. Got some great enclosure lines, so we'll take a look at those also. And a line I developed myself, I'll do it in A flat here, use a nice rootless voicing, and here it is. And I used to try to practice these in all 12 keys, but I only really got good at them in certain keys because it doesn't fit under your fingers in every key. So my suggestion is when you come up with a good line like this, put it into the keys where it works nicely, but where it's real uncomfortable and you have to do kind of crazy fingering, find another line that works better. All right, that's my advice. So it works well in all the black keys, this line, and it works well in a few white keys too, and I'll go over a few different ways of doing it. Now, one really cool thing about this line is it works great over a major 6 or a major 7 chord, but it also works nicely over a dominant chord. It's got the major 7th in there once in a while, but it's just a quick passing tone, and so that doesn't really make any difference. B flat works pretty nicely. All right, E flat is good. And I'll put a few of these in the PDF that you can easily download. That's down there in the description. You just hit the link and there's the PDF. No bullshit, just there it is. So every black key it works. D flat. Even G flat's okay. I don't get much practice on that one. Probably should. And there's some white keys where it works pretty nicely. F. I think G is kind of an uncomfortable one, and D doesn't work out as well. But it's doable in any key. So if you like the run and you want to try it in some of the more awkward keys, be my guest. A very classic run that you hear a lot of, and this will work on a dominant chord or a major chord. And that's just, I guess it's not really an enclosure because you're hitting the note right away, going away from it again. But you can turn it into an enclosure by changing it to that. And believe it or not, the first place I ever heard that run and the person I learned it from was McCoy Tyner. So if you think all McCoy does is do all that kind of stuff, listen to some of his early albums and you'll see he's got all the jazz under his fingers, really. It's not just, though that stuff is really great that he does. I wish I understood it better. Oops. That kind of cool stuff. You don't usually hear enclosures when you're doing that kind of style, but of course it could work. Maybe you could even do enclosures on Pentatonic, In fact, I knew a guy, George Whitty's great piano player. He teaches a little bit online, produces albums for like all the great people in the world. He had some kind of riff that was kind of, let's see, what was it? Yeah, I remember when he was about 22 years old is when I knew him, and he was on a cruise ship and practicing like 8 hours a day. And I remember him doing that. And he said to me, "Oh, I can finally hear that. It sounds kind of dissonant when you're doing it. But if you had it in a 2-5-1, or let's make it an altered 2-5-1. So let's see, that would be like, right? So you go, what was that again? E minor. Let's do E minor 7 flat 5, and then the A7." It sounds pretty good, and I think you can hear that. Okay, let's see. Frederick Chopin. Here's a great one. I'll do it in F. So you start off like the blues, like that, and then you hit the 3rd, the flat 5, and the 6. So you got, and then I think he did it on a major chord. So if you alter this part of it, you can do it either like a major chord or a dominant 7th. So, or either way works, or dominant. If you're playing the blues. See? I even did it on the B flat chord. It still seemed to work okay. Let's see, what else can I talk about with the enclosures? Now, if enclosures are something that's kind of new to you and you're trying to work them into your improvisation, let me suggest that you start your lines with an enclosure. Not everyone, obviously, but try starting your line with an enclosure rather than putting it into the middle or at the end. That can come later, of course, but let's just say, we're doing a 2-5-1 here in D minor. All right. So, and you're aiming for a chord tone, so you just go. See, like that. All right. You don't have to worry if the notes are in the scale or anything, because some of them won't be. All right. I think I might have had one in the middle there, but. There's a good one. All right, that goes clear around. 5 notes, up there, down there, another switch, and then finally hit the note you're aiming for. know, put one there at the end too. Anyway, they get your line off to a nice kind of jazzy start, and if it sounds good at the beginning, it's easier to kind of keep the good ideas going. I hope this video was enlightening, useful, helpful, enjoyable, fun, entertaining, amusing, whatever. If it was any of those things, hit the like button, give me a subscribe, and if you want to really support the channel, help me keep going. I do like doing these videos, but they're very time consuming. So if you want to help me out on Patreon, greatly appreciated. You can also just, hit me up through PayPal if you want to do it that way too. Thanks so much, everyone. I'll see you again soon.